Hello my friends, soon Russia is going to try one more attempt to get Kyiv under their control, and the main vector for their attack will be from the Belarusian territory. We got this information from our defense minister, from the general commander Zaluzhny, and today President Zelensky also in his address to nations said about that scenario. As for me, it's one of the most realistic scenarios for the Russian Federation to continue this war. But after all, they're gonna lose, and let me tell you why. I'm constantly monitoring the situation on the front lines, and from what I can say to my friends, and partially this information is confirmed by the Western intelligence, for example UK intelligence, that Russia is exhausted in Bakhmut. All of their tries to reach the city and take it under control are useless. Totally, in the recent 2 months, they lost around 10,000 soldiers in their attempt to get Bakhmut. Those losses build the dramatic consequences within the Russian army and also private military army as Wagner. Also, the Russian side is losing their superiority in artillery, first of all because they are in lack of ammunitions. During the spring and summertime, they fired around 60,000 shells per day, and now they fire around 15 up to 20,000 shells, so the effectiveness dropped by 3 times. With the help of the long-range rocket artillery systems that Ukrainian army has, for example HIMARS or M270 or any kind of other Western analogs, we were able to target the Russian ammunition depots, which are far behind the front lines, and that makes the Russian army to starve in ammunitions. And now Russia wants to disperse their ammunition warehouses and split them into the small ones, but in that case they need to improve their infrastructure and logistics, which is the nightmare for the Russian army. For now they say that they want to move the ammunition depots further away from the front lines, but at some points of the front lines it's simply not possible, for example Donetsk or Bakhmut city. And there are many more cases, as in Makivka, where Russia lost many of their soldiers in barracks together with ammunitions and fuel storages. They've just not been reported from the Russian side. And yes, usually they don't have those tremendous losses as in Makivka, and that's why there's the big scandal now in Russia, but believe me, no one will be punished. So if you look from this perspective now, in general, Russia went to defense on most part of the territories. Here for sure, here they try still some of the small attacks. They also try some of the small attacks near to Svatova, but I would say that Ukrainian army has more progress over there. So definitely the Russian army with its current resource in Ukraine cannot manage the task that political management put to the Russian army. Putin says that he at least wants to liberate, and we know that this word from his means capture the Ukrainian territories of Donetsk region, Zaporizhia and Kherson over here, and the current Russian army simply cannot do it even in their dreams. Okay, they cannot attack, they're in lack of resource, but can they keep the defense? Also no, because it's simple mathematics. Each day Ukraine gets more and more weaponry, and each day Russia loses their weaponry and their resource. The military facilities and factories that they have in Russia are unable to fulfill the needs of the Russian army in this war. And that is why they put very old Soviet tanks and artillery systems to the front lines from the long-term storages. And that's why if Russia will try to keep those territories for a long time, little by little Ukraine will get some parts of the land, and the situation will be the same as it happened in Kherson over here, where Russian army was forced just to flee the territory, otherwise they would be just demolished over there. As you can see, any kind of the action from the Russian Federation, offense or defense, will not bring them victory. And Russian command, political management of the Russian Federation, Putin's circle and Putin himself, they all know about it. I think they realized it in September that they were forced to flee the Kharkiv region and retreat. The main strategy now for Russia is to press the pause in this war, not just from their side but also from Ukrainian side. They need peace talks. Because of that, during the autumn time they tried to raise the bets, because there were some of the provocations in Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. There were some of the talks about the dirty bombs as well. Russia said that they may use nukes and even perform some of the drills, and they continue to say that Ukraine developed some sort of the chemical and nuclear weaponry. Plus, Russia started to launch the big missile attacks on Ukrainian civilian infrastructure, power plants, power lines, also during the autumn time. They really thought that they may change the opinion of Ukrainian society. They want to raise the riots within Ukraine than people suffering without electricity. But in reality, Ukrainian society became more and more united because of those attacks and start to hate the Russian Federation even more. And until this moment, Russia used the most part of their cruise missiles and mostly attack Ukraine with Shahid drones. So they eagerly want to pause this war because without it they will lose. But they want to pause not just to secure the current territories and to bring peace for Ukrainians. No, they want to regroup, they want to increase the effectiveness of their army, to bring more resources to it. That is why they need time, and we are not giving them the time. The idea for Russia is still to get all of the Ukraine under their control, and they will never stop until they lose. And from political perspective, for Putin personally, this war should not continue like that, because soon there's going to be elections in Russia in 2024. Yes, they have fake elections, but if all of the people would not support his current actions, still Putin will lose. The Russian society in big and relatively wealthy cities of Russia like Moscow, St. Petersburg, Yekaterinburg, they mostly do not support Putin's regime. But outside those cities, Putin has some support, and poverty plays a great role here. And I think Putin wants to make all of the Russians poor for the more support of his. So it could be like in the North Korea, then everyone mostly poor but still supports their Kim Jong-un leader. So the only way for Russia to change something for them is to start the massive attack once again on Kyiv with more forces than they had back in February last year. You see, in Putin's mindset, this war is very similar to Chechnya. Then Russia lost the first war and it was the peaceful agreement. Then Chechnya territory became independent, but then Russia put more forces to attack the Chechnya. They gain control over that territory. And here I'm sure that Putin thinks that if they put like 500,000 soldiers, 1 million soldiers to get the Kyiv under control, to force people of Kyiv and Zelensky to flee, it will bring victory for Russia. The problem for Putin and Russia itself stays the same. They still haven't realized that Ukrainian society will never accept their ruling over Ukraine. Yes, this attack will fail even with 1 million soldiers. I'll later explain you why. But even if they take Kyiv and all of that part of Ukraine, like this territory, people will never accept them there, and there will be partisan wars. And as the Soviet army, disgraceful with the shame, left Afghanistan, the same destiny waits for the Russian Federation in that case. The bad thing here in this scenario that partisan wars are very slow, and in that case Ukrainian warriors may need a decade to drive out Russians from Ukrainian territory. But finally, it will happen even in that bad scenario for Ukraine. But I think it will never happen, and let me tell you why. Let's zoom into this north part of Ukrainian territory. As we know already, Russia tried this scenario, so mainly they took the road from Chernobyl all the way to Irpin, and they were very close to the city suburbs. They took this vast part of the territory. Also, they advanced from Chernihiv, but were stopped on this road on the way to Kyiv, and they tried to reach it from Nezhin, from Sumsky region, but also unsuccessfully, and were stopped near to Brovary. Ukraine wasn't prepared for that attack, I know it for sure. President Zelensky, until the final moment, couldn't believe that Russia would dare to attack the Kyiv city. The Ukrainian command sent most of the soldiers to Donbass to protect that area because they thought that Russia would try to reach that territory and, as they say, free Donbass. And basically, first soldiers who protect Kyiv were newcomers and were just hired to Ukrainian army. But after a while, Ukrainian army put some reserves, and Russian army was forced to retreat from that territory. So the biggest change now that we are waiting for them, We concentrate our forces all across the Belarusian border. We build the defense lines. We blown up all of the roads that are leading from the Belarusian territory to Ukraine, basically cutting all of the supplies with not a friendly state. And let's switch to the satellite image. You can see that the only way how you can reach Kyiv is using those roads, because otherwise you have forests, you have swamps and everything on your way. So because Ukrainian army wasn't prepared for the first attack, they were able to take the roads, but also those roads became the massive graves for the Russian army, because they concentrated their vehicles all across those roads and they unable to turn to the forest, to the swamp. That is why they were easy targets for Ukrainian aviation and our artillery. That is why basically they returned back to Belarus and further to Russia. And what army will fight against Ukraine in their next attempt to reach Kyiv? Mobilized soldiers, my friends. 1 million could be 500,000. We don't know, but soon they will announce the martial law in Russian Federation. They will close the borders and they will announce the massive mobilization. Because from the information we see in the media resources, from intelligence services, from officials, we already know that Putin have decided to go on the suicide mission. And that mission is the final accord of his regime and also for Russian Federation as we know it right now. In case of the imminent attack, then Russia will gather their forces in Belarus close to Ukrainian border. By the way, they already sent their reinforcements to the Belarusian territory, and Putin is talking actively with Lukashenko about something. So this scenario is very likely to happen, my friends. So in that case, then they will gather their forces. Obviously, Ukraine will get more help, especially military help from our Western allies. And as for the Russian mobilized army, they will just run on attack with what they have. And those soldiers, they are not zombies. You see, then Ukrainian army will start to defend the territory. Then we're gonna fire HIMARSes, artillery systems. Then we'll launch our aviation, because if we'll have the Patriot systems, Russia wouldn't dare to use their fighter jets over Kyiv again. So I'm sure that they will not have the air superiority during their second attempt to reach Kyiv. And Russian mobilized soldiers, seeing all of that mess happening, they will not fight. They will just run. The morale of the army will drop below zero, because the Russian command and their politicians until this point haven't explained to their society and their future soldiers that they will take from just civilian men what they have to fight for. But Putin doesn't care. He already lost this war, my friends. And what he does, he wants to secure his power as long as possible, because for him, if Russia loses this war, he will lose his life. And he doesn't care about his own people. 1 million men doesn't matter. During the virus pandemic, Russia lost around 1.5 million people. So what happened? Nothing for Putin's regime. So he will continue to do what he thinks is okay for him personally. The problem that he lives in a parallel reality. And then Russia loses their second attempt to get Kyiv under their control. Simply, it will be the collapse of the Russian regime. In that case, Ukraine will easily return its territories, and Russian Federation would be disintegrated and collapse into the several states like Chechnya, Dagestan, Tatarstan, Siberia, and who knows, maybe friends from China will try to get some of the territories in Siberia too. Ukrainian command expects that massive Russian attack to happen not before late February or even March, because Russia needs to announce the mobilization to get many more new people in their army, and they barely have the resources to give weaponry and other stuff to their previous mobilization wave. And here we are speaking about many more people that may be used to attack Kyiv. For the fast, rapid attack, they may use those soldiers. They do not require supply lines, and many people will die because of that try, unfortunately. Right, guys, let's go to some of the news. Here we have the sky in Crimea. As you can, wow, this is the big explosion out there, and some of the drones probably attack Crimean territory. As you can see that Russia is using the cannons to shut down the drones, and Ukrainian side used that feature as well. And this is from the other perspective. Here we have some of the shots. And again, big boom. My friends, it is quite scary when you see those traces. I was in Boryspil once, then it was the Shahid drone attack. I saw the drone flying in the skies. It was early evening, still you could see some of the objects and those traces flying, trying to hit that thing. It was very loud, and the noise from the drone, it's kind of annoying and scary. And here, as you can see, more and more attacks on the Russian-controlled territory. The information came from Ukrainian intelligence that Russia put their nuclear weapons to Belarus and Crimea. Kind of interesting. I wonder if they use those. I think not. We have more footages coming from Crimea, and Russia officially says that it's some sort of the local explosion of the natural gas in some of the residential building. Russian soldiers start to mask their tracks. You can see they put some of the logs there, some of the woods, and this is the supply track that is used to refuel the tanks. Oh my god, it's the know-how from the Russian army. Russia ordered more drones from Iran. Now Russia has around 150 drones in their army, and the last shipment was around 300 drones for them, so we do expect that they'll have around 300 more. As I say to you, Russia is in lack of the cruise missiles. That is why they use those cheap drones to target Ukrainian civilian infrastructure. And Ukraine have to use the very expensive rockets to shut down Iranian drones, but we don't have the other way out. Otherwise, those drones may damage the very expensive infrastructural objects. France is the first country to supply Ukrainian army with tanks. Those are the AMX-10RC. Yes, those are more armored vehicles than tanks, and they do not have caterpillars, but still, look at this gun. It's just huge. And actually, I would say that those are kind of old, because the initial work on those armored vehicles began in 1970, and the first one was delivered 11 years after. And let's look at the cannon. It has 105mm caliber, and it has the electronic gun control system, but no stabilization system, unfortunately. It also have the machine gun is mounted on the turret as well. So basically, it's good to have those vehicles, and maybe the delivery of those, I would say, tanks on wheels will show to other countries that it is okay to deliver tanks with the big guns to Ukraine. Still, 105mm cannon is less powerful compared to the Russian standard T-72 tank cannon, which has 125mm cannon. So that is why I think those vehicles can be used just to reinforce our infantry, and obviously this thing loses against the standard Russian T-72 tank. However, here they say that the cannon of this French Wonder tank can penetrate the armor of the single heavy tank target at a range of 1,200 meters and triple heavy tank target at a range of 2,200 meters. So those are the standard targets to show the penetration of the weaponry. I think it's quite good, and maybe it may be used even against the Russian tanks, who knows. And here they say that France got 240 of those tanks or armored vehicles in their army, and before they already sent 108 to Morocco and 12 to Qatar. So potentially we may get 240 of those vehicles, because France is going to change to replace this vehicle to the Jaguar tank. And it's a kind of different one, but more modern. Plus, we'll have Bastion armored vehicles delivered to Ukrainian army, also by France. So France, thank you so much for your support. And the process have already been started to pass Ukraine the Patriot systems from United States. Plus, we have the information that United States will send more HIMARS systems to Ukraine. Awesome support from America. One more Russian ammunition warehouse was destroyed. Actually, this is the Ahmad battalion, Chechens, who are fighting now on the Russian side. You can see the armored vehicles, and maybe the tank was destroyed over there. Yeah, mostly vehicles and trucks. they are laughing like, ho ho ho, we are okay, we survived, but we just lost many of their vehicles and ammunitions. My friends, I'm gonna keep you updated on situation in Ukraine. Now, if you want to support my channel, just press the like button. If you want to support me financially, there are always some of the links in the video description below. You may support me on Patreon, PayPal, or Donatello, whichever is more convenient for you. Thank you so much for your support. My friends, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.